Ayy, look, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the New Media Podcast. I'm your host, Ya. We hope you enjoyed the last episode because, as always, today's going to be an even better episode. As you can see, I got the whole crew with me. Everybody's in the house today, and today we got a little bit to get into. So basically on the agenda, what we got is number one, we're going to be recapping NBA free agency. NBA free agency has died down a little bit, so we'll be talking about the biggest winners, the biggest losers, the teams that came up on the come up and teams that kind of disappointed. We'll talk about the NBA Summer League that just wrapped up a couple days ago. We'll talk about the standouts that we saw, people that disappointed us, people that surprised us. And then we'll go ahead and close out with Abdi's favorite player, James Harden, requesting another trade, his third trade in 4 years. So, of course, before we jump into all of that, temperature check. How's everybody doing today?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm ready to recap this NBA free agency. I'm interested to see. It doesn't seem like there's much gonna happen within these next 2 weeks. Maybe this Damian Lillard deal progresses, but nothing has been reported as such. And the Blazers are willing to hold out, and so I just want to see what happens. But we are in a time where it is kind of boring. The NBA has died down. Summer League just finished, so there's not much to talk about. But we got some stuff.
We got some stuff to talk about, Free agency has died down. Summer League is finished, but, we can recap most of it. So, and then Dame, Portland's playing hardball. They say they can wait till the 3, 4, 5 months till they get a great offer. And I don't know, man. I feel like they doing this on purpose to Dame. I thought beginning of time, if Dame asks for a trade, that, they'll send him anywhere, but we'll get into those details.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm excited to get into this agenda today, get to these topics, man. We got a lot that we got to get into, a lot that we got to cover. And I say we just go ahead and jump right into it. Speaking of free agency, since we did mention that it did die down, I think it's best that we start off with who are the biggest winners in free agency.
I want to say the Phoenix Suns, but I've been bouncing between these two. It's say they're going to be, for me, the Los Angeles Lakers, or it's going to be the Phoenix Suns. I do want to give the edge to the Lakers just because of the deal that they got, Austin Reeves on. I mean, that's an absolute steal. Coming into this, I was assuming the Lakers were going to have to pay him $25 million a year, possibly 30, possibly whatever Jordan Poole, Tyler Hero, Maxey, whatever those guys got. But, they got this guy on an absolute steal of a deal. And, we saw how much of a quality player he was in this postseason. They ended up picking up a guy like Taurean Prince as well, which is, he's a strong 3-and-D level player. They got Jackson Hayes, who's going to be someone that's going to, back up the center position. He's not going to be a player that I have high hopes for, but, they're looking to fill out certain areas in their roster. And so I do think the Lakers are one of the winners in this free agency. And the other one would be the Phoenix Suns and getting Bradley Beal. I mean, if you get rid of Chris Paul and Landry Shamet, you end up with Bradley Beal. That's an absolute win, in my opinion. So it would have to be the Los Angeles Lakers and the Phoenix Suns.
100% my Lakers, man. 100% my Lakers. It's just off how we got Austin Reeves back on that type of deal. It works out perfectly fine for us. And you got to shout out Rob Pelinka. He came out the start of free agency. He said, "Hey, whatever you guys throw out Austin Reeves, we're gonna match it." So no team really, made an offer sheet for him. They didn't.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Yeah. I don't think even a
No.
team had a chance just because
Nah.
they thought, the Lakers are just gonna match it. Why should we even because
Yeah.
there's no way. What is he getting paid? $15 million a year?
I think so. The first year is 12, and the next 3 are gonna be 15 or 14 each.
Which is makes no sense.
Yeah,
the Lakers basically just told everybody hey, we're gonna match these guys' offers. There's just don't even bother. Which I mean, I guess
Pelinka said it straight up. He was like, whatever you throw at him, 100 mil, 90 mil, it doesn't matter. We're gonna match it. So teams are like, you know what? He's gonna be a Laker. We're gonna leave it alone. And we got him on a great team-friendly deal. I think it was 4 years, 50 mil. It's fantastic. We kept Rui. We signed him as well. We got D'Lo back. I'm not a big D'Lo fan, but it is what it is. He knows the system. If he can, play up to par, play a little more consistent, it's gonna be good. Jackson Hayes as a backup center. Not too fond of him. I don't see much of him, but it's another big body that we can use down the stretch or when AD gets tired, just throw him in. Hopefully he does something defensively, grab some rebounds. We didn't have that last year. We had Mo Bamba. Mo Bamba wasn't playing. And then, you add Cam Reddish and Taurean Prince and Gabe Vincent. So,
I forgot about Gabe Vincent.
yeah,
What the
Gabe
hell?
Vincent, after what he did for Miami
Little
last year in
backup.
the playoffs, phenomenal backup player for us, So I feel like, our wing rotation, it kind of got bigger. I feel like we're going to be more physical next year. Our depth, we got some wing size. We got Vanderbilt back. We got Prince. We got LeBron. We got Reddish. So we got some wing size up front. And I'm here. Christian Wood might come to LA in these next couple of weeks. So, add him to the depth. Offensively, he's a fantastic player, a guy that has played with AD. He talked about AD a lot, saying that AD helped him in his game. And I feel like defensively, with Darvin Ham, he can fix up and be a great addition to our team. So I'm giving my Lakers A+. I feel like we did fantastic this offseason.
Yeah, no doubt. The Lakers were one of the few teams that were extremely active to start off the NBA free agency, but I wouldn't necessarily go as far as to call them my winners. I think for me, when I evaluate teams that have made moves in free agency, I try to look at it from a team perspective where like I want to see which team got better. It's like extremely better in comparison to what they were last year. The Lakers pretty much rounded out their roster by bringing back the same guys, and they kind of had to make a decision in whether or not they wanted to, acquire another superstar with all that added cap space that they had going into free agency, or just re-sign a lot of these guys and run it back and have a training camp with this whole group. And so that's what they did. They re-signed a bunch of their guys on a lot of team-friendly deals, and a lot of these guys won't be around for the next about 2, 3, 4 years. So besides maybe Austin Reeves and a couple other players, but for me, when I look at the winners, I think for me, number one, my winner from the 2023 NBA free agency would be number one, the Cleveland Cavaliers. As we saw the Cleveland Cavaliers in the postseason, those guys struggled to shoot the ball, and they made two key signings that I believe will help them in the long run. One being Max Strus and two being George Niang. Do I like the contract they gave Max Strus? I'm not a big fan. Max Strus getting a contract 4 years, $62 million when pretty much all he can do is shoot the three ball. I think it's a big overpay, but he can help him in that aspect of the game when he needs to stretch the floor alongside guys like Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. And then George Niang, I think it's a very team-friendly deal as well. 3 years, $25 million. So that deal is all right. But the Max Strus the contract, I'm not really too big of a fan of. 4 years, 62, I think is a little bit of an overpay. They did end up re-signing Karis LeVert for 2 years, $32 million. So that's one of my winners. And the number two, I do like what the Indiana Pacers did by picking up Bruce Brown in free agency. I think the Indiana Pacers right now, with the way they're constructed, I do believe that they're going to be a playoff team. This is probably the year that they make the playoffs. They're at the pace that they were going at last year. Before Tyrese Halliburton went out, they're bound to be either a playing team or a low-end top 6 seed. And so I think with adding Bruce Brown to this roster and, drafting Jarris Walker in the draft a couple of weeks ago, I think they're starting to round out their roster as well. And so I think everything's starting to mesh well. And I think with the East being so wide open, the Indiana Pacers do have a big opportunity to, capitalize on that opportunity, and they have a chance that's, still in one of these top seeds in the Eastern Conference. And so those for me would be my two winners, but any honorable mentions for biggest winners?
Like my other one would have been the Indiana Pacers. I feel like do we call Bruce Brown an overpay? Kinda, but like at the end of the day, they do have the cap space to sign someone like Bruce Brown. The Indiana Pacers have gotten better. They drafted Jarris Walker. Of course, we know that. They picked up Bruce Brown. I think the team this year, they are going to, as you mentioned, make a playoff push. They are someone that should. I really think the Dallas Mavericks re-signing Kyrie Irving is a win, in my opinion. Getting him back, I know it seemed like for a second after Kyrie was attempting to get out, but it seems like this guy's hell bent on staying in Dallas, and he's working on building a contender with Luka. So I think re-signing Kyrie Irving is a huge move, and they had a great draft as well. So Dallas would be another winner for me.
I was gonna say I think Boston can be another winner. Them kind of switching up the formula, picking up KP. And then,
that is one. That's a good one.
I feel like just them picking up KP and getting away from the Marcus Smart thing, getting away from that type of offense, that type of style that they're playing. I feel like KP fits perfectly with them. So I think Boston's another winner as well, and they picked up a couple first round picks the next couple years too. So it's great.
In terms of free agency moves,
losing. Are we talking about losers yet, or
not yet? Okay. I'm still trying. I'm trying to find an honorable mention winner. I had a few on my list, but I mean,
I mean, the
Lakers,
Sacramento Kings, it
Phoenix.
wasn't bad either.
Houston. I think
Yeah,
Houston was a free agent.
Houston was one of them.
Houston picking up
I
that
agree.
free
That
agent.
I think Dallas is also another honorable mention winner. But other than that, I think free agency pretty much in terms of winners, there's not really much of them this year. But I think there's a whole lot of losers. So I think we should go ahead and jump into that. Who is the biggest losers coming out of NBA free agency?
Now, I don't know if I would outright say these guys are the biggest losers, but I will say they should be mentioned as losers in free agency. I do think the Denver Nuggets are overrating their roster just a tad bit. They're not. They're hoping guys like Christian Brown and Peyton Watson take a leap, which is putting your trust in second year players like that is a bit scary, and I don't think they have a necessary replacement for someone like Bruce Brown. I feel like that's going to be somewhere that they sorely miss. I mean, this guy's versatility and ball handling and playmaking ability when he came in was unmatched. He found his ability to cut. And I don't think Christian Brown's going to be able to replicate that. Peyton Watson's a little bit of an unknown. I do think he's a good player, but the Denver Nuggets. I mean, after winning a championship, I do think that they should have attempted to find someone to replace Bruce Brown with. But this with Jokic and Jamal Murray and APJ and Aaron Gordon, and KCP, that's a good enough starting lineup to do a lot with. But still, even then, I feel like they should have attempted to replace Bruce Brown. So they are my loser of the free agency.
For me, I'm gonna say the Warriors. I feel like them trading away. I feel like you could get way more for Jordan Poole, and what they got back is not what you're supposed to get back, and it doesn't fit their style of play. Doesn't fit their system at all. And I feel like it was a panic trade. What's Mike Dunleavy 4 days before that trade? Hey, Jordan Poole's here to stay for 4+ years. Blah da da da. He's gonna be here forever. 4 days later, he hits the panic button. He gets Chris Paul back, a 30-year-old Chris Paul that we know hasn't performed in the playoffs recently. We know he's very old and he's on his last legs. And you trade away a young star that you just not a young star, but an upcoming star that you just paid big money to and helped you win the finals the year before for chump change. So and they didn't really get anybody in the free agency either. If I'm looking at it, they only got Dario Saric, and that was about it. What an offseason for them. They didn't address the needs that they needed to. They picked up CP3, and he's a cone on defense. He's a cone on offense. To me, I don't think he's the player that Jordan Poole is. And you could have got more for Jordan Poole. You could have checked the market. You could have said, hey, we can, if Jordan Poole's up right here, we'll throw a first round pick with him. We could have got another star or another big star to pair up with Curry and Clay and Draymond. But to me, they're the losers of the draft. Free agency.
This one, there's definitely a lot of losers for me. I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 biggest losers. But if I had to pick one, I think for me the biggest loser from free agency are the Sacramento Kings. No doubt in my mind. The Sacramento Kings were a team that were the third seed this year. They made strides. They made a huge stride in jumping from being a lottery team all the way to a top 3 team in the Western Conference. They didn't come out of free agency getting any better. I know there's still a little bit of time left to make some sort of move, but there's not much moves that are left to be made this late in free agency. They didn't capitalize on anything. They re-signed Harrison Barnes, they re-signed Trey Lyles, and that was about it. They restructured. I think they extended Sabonis, and he was like a very team-friendly deal. But outside of that, the Sacramento Kings pretty much they're going into this upcoming season the same team they did coming out of last season. So it's like, how they didn't get any better, and the West is only getting better and better. So now I'm looking at the Western Conference as a whole, and I'm trying to see where the Sacramento Kings line up against any of these top teams, in the West. So it's just kind of tough for the Kings to kind of keep up with these guys when a lot of your oppositions are making moves. The Los Angeles Lakers are making moves. The Los Angeles Clippers, they might be on the cusp of making a couple of moves. You also have the Phoenix Suns that made a move as well. And so there's a lot of other teams. Those are the 3 top teams off the top of my head. And then you still have the reigning champs of the Denver Nuggets, and then all these Flyer teams that can compete with you. And so, I think the Sacramento Kings really missed out on a big opportunity to take a swing.
I mean, they didn't get worse,
somebody. They didn't get worse, but they didn't get any better, and everybody around them got better. So it's kind of like they're kind of stuck right now in the situation.
And to be fair, in their minds, they're thinking, okay, we had the best starting lineup in basketball.
I want to say everybody around them got better.
They had the best starting lineup in basketball last season. Like in their minds, they're thinking, okay, like, you know, yeah, we didn't address in totality. Like we could have went for a guy like Dylan Brooks or Jerry Green or
Kuzma.
Kyle Kuzma. Like we could have got one out and like got a shiny new toy. But in their minds, they're thinking, okay, let's just run it back with this lineup that we have. This one that produced one of the best offensive ratings in NBA history. This killer of a scoring lineup, and let's just get better. You know, they are a fairly young team, and in their minds, they're thinking, okay, we're not even close to our peak yet. Let's just run it back with the same roster and see how far we can get. Let's make improvements on the season marginally. So I don't see the Phoenix Suns. I'm sorry, I don't see the Sacramento Kings dropping more than like a fifth seed. I don't see that.
I mean, that's still a drop though in comparison to where they were last year. And
I mean, for a young team that was what they got 48 wins this season. I think that's pretty good for a team that won 48 wins, and they go in a stacked Western Conference this season and they finish as a fifth seed. I don't think that's like a backward, like a complete like backwards dive. Like I feel like that's pretty fair for that team and that roster that they have.
I mean, I just think the way I see it, you know, with them taking that huge of a leap, I was expecting them to kind of keep that momentum going. Whether that would be signing a lot more players, a lot more role players, or taking a swing on a superstar or a star in free agency via trade. I just thought the Sacramento Kings were going to be one of those active teams that were looking to, you know, continue to rebuild on what they got, and you know, obviously, in order to compete with a lot of their folks in the Western Conference. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But
like I would look at the Bulls. Honestly, I look at the Bulls and the Raptors as bigger losers than Sacramento Kings.
Yeah,
Like,
I wanted to say the Raptors.
Those are the teams that are on my list.
I see those two teams that, like, at least with the Kings, they're a winning team. Like those two teams are in purgatory. Like they're not like they, especially for a team like the Raptors, they could have got a haul for Siakam and they could have got a haul for OG. The Bulls are just stuck running the same lineup with Vucevic, DeRozan, Levine, and that's obviously not producing anything. I think those two teams should be seen as worse losers than the Sacramento Kings. The Kings are in a winning situation compared to those two teams.
So the only difference in comparison from those teams to the Kings is, you know, the two teams play in the Eastern Conference, which is pretty weak, and when the one team plays in a very stacked Western Conference, and so, you know, it'd be a different conversation if the conferences were switched. But I do have those two teams being, you know, along with the Kings as biggest losers as well. I think number one, the Toronto Raptors losing Fred VanVleet in free agency to the Houston Rockets, not really, you know, having a sense of direction. Just pretty much just trying to run it back without one of their pieces that kind of helped them, you know, win a chip a couple of years ago. Siakam's price is too high, OG's price is too high, and so I just kind of have no idea what Masai Ujiri is trying to do with the Toronto Raptors. And for my Chicago Bulls, man, you know, Kobe White, I think he earned himself this payday, 3 years, $36 million. You know, so I'm not too mad at that. But you know, Javon Carter, 3 year, 19, Torrey Craig, 2 year, $5 million deal, and then I believe they gave Vucevic that extension that I'm completely blanking on, but. I just feel like those guys are kind of stuck, you know, with all these rumors going around surrounding Zach LaVine and whether or not he's going to leave or stay. Eventually, coming out of next season, he's going to be gone, whether that's at the trade deadline or, you know, coming out of next offseason, going into the next season. I think Zach LaVine is going to be gone off this roster. DeRozan will be gone. These guys just don't have an idea where they're trying to go. So that's another team that's a loser in my eyes. And then for me, another flyer would be the Washington Wizards. I mean, I think with all those moves that they made in free agency, before free agency kicked off, all those trades, moving off of all those guys, Bradley Beal, and trading for Jordan Poole, I don't know if signing Kyle Kuzma to a 4-year, $90 million deal was the move.
I think they won the free agency, in my opinion. I think the Wizards. I give Wizards an A.
They picked up Tyus Jones. They got Poole. They re-kept Kuzma. That's not too bad of a free agency.
And they got rid of Bradley Beal's contract. I mean, that's like the biggest W you can take.
What was the return? What was the return they got back for KP?
Was it that Tyus Jones?
It was Tyus Jones.
I mean, they got rid of Bradley Beal's contract. That if that's not like a B at least, like that's like
and don't forget,
they're like in terms of like my rankings, they're definitely one of like the lower teams that have lost in free agency. But I honestly just don't understand why they would re-sign Kyle Kuzma 4 years, $90 million. I think Kyle Kuzma max stays there for at least half of his contract, and maybe even less than that. I don't
think Kuzma's that type of player to be like, I want out. He's not that type of star caliber player to be like, hey, after 2 years, trade me to an elite team. I want to win a championship. I don't think he has that type of pull. I feel like
He's 20. He's 27.
And
I think at the start of next season, he'll
contract's
be
not
28.
bad.
I
For
feel
the
like
cap
he's gonna
space that they
stay there,
have.
vibe out 4 years, get paid, and just average 23 points a game. Yeah, I feel like he's that type of guy. So I feel like it's not bad for them. Kuzma was gonna get
Like, I
paid.
mean, the contract's not terrible. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
the
like
contract's not
It's
horrible.
not a
4
terrible
years.
contract. I was just assuming that the Washington Wizards would, go into this full rebuild, which they still are at the same time, but like without having a guy that's getting paid some sort of crazy contract. It's not crazy, but a large contract. And I think, I thought they were just going to let Kyle Kuzma walk in free agency. Or I thought Kyle Kuzma himself was going to go test the waters and see what he could get, and maybe even land himself on a contending team. Because I know the market was it wasn't extremely hot, scorching hot, but the market was there for Kyle Kuzma, and I think he could have, if he tested the waters, I think he could have probably ended up with maybe not 90 mil, but maybe a little bit less, somewhere around 80, 70 something, 75. But I look at all these other moves aside from, biggest winners and biggest losers. The Houston Rockets, one of the few teams that came up that I think we do have to talk about in free agency. Fred VanVleet, 4 years, 3 years, $128 million. I'm not too sure how I feel about Fred VanVleet getting $40 million, but I think the Houston Rockets are kind of building themselves some sort of foundation to kind of be a playing team going into next year. And they added, while adding Fred VanVleet, they added guys like Dylan Brooks, 4 years, $86 million. Jack Londale, 4 years, 32. They signed Jeff Green from the Denver Nuggets, 2 years, 16 mil. And so these guys made a lot of moves, man. I think these guys are, obviously one of the sneaky, underrated winners coming out of free agency. But, I'm just kind of curious as to what is, Ime cooking with a lot of these guards. It's going to be interesting to see how this whole experiment pans out. Looking at the Clippers, Russell Westbrook, 2 years, $7
They got him
million.
on an unreal deal. Let's be honest.
That's crazy.
That's a great deal.
And that's him choosing that.
I think he picked that too. Team friendly option for him, but
There's no way if Westbrook tests the market, he's getting some sort of crazy contract. Maybe a little bit more than 7 mil.
He's getting a lot more than that. I'll tell you that.
But
I mean, Reggie Jackson's getting paid
what is he getting if he
Westbrook's
tests the market?
He's getting minimum at $15 million a year. Minimum.
15 is all right. 15 is all right for us.
I really think he could push that to $20 million a year.
On what team though?
I don't know.
If a team was interested in offering Westbrook, they'd give him $20 million a year. And that's a pretty solid deal for a guy like Westbrook, I think, at this point.
I think you would definitely taken 20 mil, but I think he's found himself a nice fit on this Clippers team, and so I think it makes sense for him to return. Looking at other moves as well, the one move that's kind of like a head scratcher for me, and also another team that I actually do have to mention being one of the biggest losers as well, is the Portland Trailblazers. Aside from the whole Dame saga and everything that's going on with him, these guys came out in free agency and re-signed Jeremy Grant to a 5-year, $160 million extension. Not only did they do that, they ended up matching Matisse Thybulle's offer sheet from the Dallas Mavericks, which was for 3 years, $33 million. And so I honestly have no idea what this franchise is doing. I think this is one of the franchises right now that are in shambles.
Yeah, like everybody knows the elephants in the room. They know the Portland Trailblazers can't run a 2-timeline gimmick. It's Dame or it's these young guards. It's a rebuild or attempting to contend, not even contending, just attempting to contend. And it seems like Jeremy Grant was in their plans of attempting to contend until they realized Damian Lillard wants out. And I just don't understand why they would need to pay Jeremy Grant. I do think he's a solid player, but he's not worth that level of money, especially for a team that isn't going to be contending. So this team's just like, I get that now they're just going to hold out for the best offer for Dame, but like, why would you do that? And then like, you're still stuck with this Jeremy Grant contract. Like, what are you attempting to do? Like, why even offer it to him in the first place? So, I feel like this team is kind of stuck until they get rid of Dame. And, after they get rid of Dame, then it's just like, okay, then the rest of these guys are on rookie contracts. So we can just eat up this Jeremy Grant contract. It's fine. But they also match Matisse Thybulle. So, I mean, I don't understand what they're attempting to do. But if they do end up trading away Dame, I do like the idea of just them, at least it'll lessen the pain of having to deal with Jeremy Grant's contract. So
that's fair, but I guess they weren't necessarily anticipating Damian Lillard to be requesting a trade this offseason, but I at the same time they did have to be prepared for something like that to happen with all the subliminals Dame was sending their way. But aside from that, I think that's just pretty much a wrap on NBA free agency. A lot of teams made some solid moves. One last move before we move on: Cameron Johnson from the Brooklyn Nets, 4 years, $94 million. I think that's pretty solid for a guy like him. I think the Brooklyn Nets understand that he's going to be one of their pieces for the future alongside Mikal Bridges, and so it only makes sense to re-sign him to that deal. And he also made a couple other moves, taking Lonnie Walker from the Lakers, Darius Baisley, and that's pretty much it. Dennis Smith Jr. signed with them recently, I guess. But anyways, like I was saying, that's pretty much a wrap on NBA free agency. Aside from NBA free agency, I do want to move on to our next topic of tonight, and that's the NBA Summer League. With the NBA Summer League pretty much wrapping up earlier this week, any standouts, any guys that impressed you, any guys that disappointed you? Let's go ahead and start that off.
You can go ahead, buddy.
Jabari Smith. That guy came in. He had a motive. He said, "I'm gonna come. I'm gonna cook." There was that game where he had 4 points in the first half and ended with like 33 in the second. The game winning three. I was just like, "But like next year, Ime, he's gonna be nice." I feel like he gets more touches. The offense is more smooth. It's not like, hey, everybody touches the ball, they just do it. Throw up their own shot. It's gonna be more movement. It's gonna be more ball passing. I feel like he's gonna find his role in that offense. So for me, Jabari Smith, he came out outstanding. People had a lot of questions about him last year. What's his role going to be alongside Jalen Green and these other young guys? Everybody knew the Rockets' offense. It wasn't looking too well, but they got a whole new team this year. So I feel like he fits in perfect, and he showed me a lot this summer league.
The guy that I'm like been raving about. It sucks that his brother got hurt after his first summer league game, but Asar Thompson, man. I've just absolutely loved every single thing that this guy has done in the summer league, whether that's playing defense, whether that's rebounding, whether that's finishing, whether that's passing. I mean, just every time he stepped onto the court, like you already got a sense that these guys, that his feel for the game is just on another level compared to anybody on the court. His ability just to read the game. Him and his brother, Amin, Amin in his first game up against Scoot Henderson, like you can just tell the IQ level that these two twins have is just on another level. You can get the sense that they study the game a lot. And it's crazy because a lot of people questioned them playing in the OTE league, but it seems like they're, compared to NCAA prospects, they're on another level of being able to read the game. And they're definitely him and his brother are going to be in this league for a long time. And I think they're both going to be star players. I just love the idea of what can do next to Cade is going to be very, very fun come down the line. And, I think Ivy's spot is going to be threatened at some point. Ivy in this summer league, I'm not going to put too much stock into summer league. I think, there's been worse players that have won summer league MVP and, they've been busted in this league. But, I didn't like what I seen out of Jaden Ivey in terms of his selfishness and how he looked. But, it is summer league at the end of the day. And another guy that impressed me a lot was Keontae George from the Utah Jazz. I think that guy's scoring ability is just phenomenal. It's a guy who, coming into this season, he was seen as a top 7 prospect. At some point, he was ranked as top 7, then he kind of fell because of inconsistencies and then injuries. But he is someone that has absolute amazing talent. He's a microwave scorer. But what has been a lot of pleasant for me to see is just his playmaking ability. So, Keontae George and Asar Thompson have been two people that I've just been thoroughly impressed with.
For me, another second-year guy, Max Christie from the Lakers, man. That guy, he showed me a lot. The development from last year to this year, the way he's getting bulked up, getting some size, the way his ball handling, his shooting, and everything, it's been fantastic. So for me, I'm very glad that he's taking this step forward. He's going to be our next Caruso, Reeves type of player. I feel like he's going to step into that role as well. He's gonna ball off. So I hope it pans out. But he showed me some in the summer league. He showed me some good hoops.
I think for me, my standout from NBA Summer League, it's got to be Cam Whitmore. I said coming into this draft, after watching his tape, he was one of the few players that I had an understanding of who he was going to be as a basketball player coming into the league. The guy that's just going to be a straight bucket for any franchise that he lands on. That's exactly what he did. Coming into summer league. Finishing off the summer league with averaging 19 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists over the course of 6 games. I believe that he was really effective for this team, and so I think I think the future is extremely bright for the Houston Rockets, and for him to fall into their laps at like what pick 20 after drafting Amen Thompson with that top pick. I think the Houston Rockets, completely not only did they win the draft, but they want for the future, and they set themselves up. So
Another guy that of course has been raving about for 2 years now since he was in college. I mean, Chet Holmgren. It was a guarantee that he was going to be great. Great was he? This guy's protection is absolutely phenomenal. Scoring his ability, his ability to surge and score, making. It's just phenomenal. First game, there was the second game, his game was getting into it. And by then, the guy, he's going to be a standout in his OKC team. He's going to come in and have an impact, and he is someone who should be seen as a dark horse for Rookie of the Year. I know Wembanyama is going to be lurking around, and he's the favorite. But Chet should be someone that is seen as a dark horse for the Rookie of the Year. He's definitely someone that I'm not going to say I was surprised by. I expected him to do this in the Summer League, but he's someone that I was happy to see perform.
Wemby finna be a hooper, though.
Yeah, everybody was overreacting after one game, but even in that one game, I mean, his rim protection was absolutely amazing. Of course, the guy literally came off of basically 3 weeks of not playing. First off, he was playing in league playoff basketball for his French team, and then he stopped playing for a minute just because he got busy with the draft and everything. Like he was playing basketball for a minute, and then
on a world tour.
Yeah, the guy's been busy. That's why he has to. I think he's sitting out of FIBA, just because he was busy with a lot of stuff and he needs time to rest. But the second game showed everybody what Victor is going to be in this league. I mean, the shot making, the rim protection, the rebounding, everything, the passing. We know this guy's going to be absolutely
playmaking abilities too. The ball handling is there. He can shape up on a couple of the dribbles. Like it look like it's for him. It's rough sometimes, but he got it. I'm gonna be watching a lot of Spurs games this year. I can't lie.
Yeah, I think a lot of people overreacted to that first game, and then for him to come out in that second game and completely dominate. That's all. That was enough for the San Antonio Spurs. But one thing that kind of confuses me when it comes to Summer League is these second-year players that don't necessarily need to be playing. They might play one game or they might play a couple games, and then after that, the general manager, the head coach feel the need to just pull them and not necessarily play them anymore when they didn't really have any serious need to be there in the first place. A lot of guys did that. Benedict Mathurin was one of them. Keegan Murray dropped like 40 points against the Warriors that first game. Never played again in the Summer League. The guy from OKC. He might have played a couple. I know he had 40 points in one of them. So yeah.
I know Jalen Williams sat out for like 4 games though.
Jalen Williams came in, dominated the first game, didn't play again. Jabari Smith, I understood why he kind of played a couple of games and then they sat him out. He kind of had to, showcase after having some sort of decent season last year. But a lot of these franchises don't necessarily have to send out these top guys. Like there's no reason for Benedict Mathurin to be out there. There's no reason for Keegan Murray to be out there. Those guys are key rotational pieces for their franchises. And so it's always just funny to see those guys show up for one game and end up sitting on the sidelines or being sent home on vacation. But another standout, though, that I think that a guy that went completely under the radar, surprisingly ended up winning on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, it was not Imani Bates, but it's Evan Mobley's brother. I think his name is Isaiah Mobley. After watching that championship game, he was just completely dominant. And then after looking up his numbers over the course of the Summer League, I think he finished off the Summer League with about 22 points. What else did he? 22 points, 9 rebounds, and so shooting 55% from the field. So I think that's another key standout. But aside from that, I think there's one guy that we have to discuss about, and I think that's Brandon Miller. One guy that struggled mightily in Summer League, I would say, kind of picked it up a little bit, but overall, if we had to, assess his Summer League debut and his Summer League as a whole, I wouldn't even say it's very mid. I would say terrible, to be honest.
I mean, yeah, I don't think it was a particularly good Summer League for a guy like Brandon Miller, especially with this talent level. But Summer League, the reason why I don't put stock into Summer League is there's always context that exists with Summer League. One, of course, is an adjustment period for guys playing against they're always going up against guys that are literally playing for their contract. So these guys are playing extra physical. It's an adjustment for a guy like Brandon Miller, who's not as physically gifted as like many other prospects. But still, he's playing on a team without a natural point guard. I mean, Nick Smith isn't necessarily a point guard; he's a shooting guard. Even though I do think that that game where he had 33 and Brandon Miller had 28. They're absolutely phenomenal, both of them in that game, and that kind of gave us a glimpse at what Brandon Miller can become. But it is a combination. I think his ability to score was on display. His shooting was phenomenal to me in the summer league. Even if it looked like he wasn't hitting as many as he should have, I still think he was good enough. But I don't put stock into summer league like that. I think Brandon Miller will be fine. I do think that there is some glaring weaknesses that he does need to work on, like his strength and his dribbling. But overall, I'm not going to put too much stock in him struggling. I mean, the guy didn't really have a point guard. I think LaMelo is going to open up a lot of things for a guy like Brandon Miller.
Yeah, he had to ask summer league. He had to ask summer league. I don't know how you get 10,000 at the summer league game and you're still hooping. I never knew that rule. Like you got like 9 fouls, you still can play in summer league. But I mean, it's not much. It's about 4 games that he played. It doesn't show much. Like Abdi said, once he plays against with the LaMelo as a playmaker, he might open up his game more. He can play off ball a little bit more. He has a okay jump shot. So once we see him with LaMelo and see how he fits in with that, we'll see. But his game to the rim, he's non-athletic. He's kind of slow. It's tough when he attacks the rim. To me, I don't know if he can finish at the basket a lot, but we'll see what happens with LaMelo.
It's just extremely hard to assess somebody based on summer league, but summer league is the first look that we get at them, and so obviously up until the start of the season, whether that's NBA preseason or opening night, we're not gonna get the opportunity to assess these guys ever again up until that point. So it wasn't a good start for Brandon Miller, but at the end of the day, it is summer league, and so I think he'll be just fine. There is some glaring weaknesses in his game that he does need to focus on leading up to the opening night. But it's going to be interesting how he pairs up with LaMelo Ball. All he has to do is really just focus on scoring, not really do anything else for that team. And LaMelo is going to put him in the right positions to be successful. And so overall, I think we saw a lot of these top talents.
Talk about your boy Scoot yet?
No, I think like the game one, him and Amen Thompson, I think they showed why they were both top 5 picks. I mean, these guys they're going back and forth. Like
game is
they're both
he's very explosive, man. It's beautiful to watch.
Yes,
the way he gets to the rack is too easy.
He's a very methodical player. I mean, the guy, he picks his spots. He likes to get into that mid-range jump shot. He reads the floor well. I think him and Amen, like they both knew exactly where their teammates were going to be. It was just the IQ level of these two is just out of this world for me. Like they're, especially Amen Thompson. I mean, the bounce pad that he had in that game where the center got fouled, that whip pass that he had to Jabari Smith. I mean, the guy's just unbelievable, both of them. And sucks that they both ended up getting hurt, but we've seen enough from both of them.
Scoot game too nice. I swear, Wemby wasn't in this draft. Easy consensus 1.
Yeah, I think those two guys going at it in that first game really kicked off the summer league. Really got the summer league off to a very hot start, and after that, it just died down. Scoot sat out due to an injury. Amen Thompson injured himself due to an ankle injury, so it wasn't really as entertaining. But we did see some flashes. But overall, I think summer league was a good showing, a good showcasing for a lot of these young talents. I think the future is going to be extremely bright for the rest of the league, and it's going to be interesting to see how all these guys do when the regular season starts. But aside from NBA Summer League, it's time that we move on to our final topic of the night, and that's James Harden. I've been waiting to talk about this for a couple of weeks now since he requested another trade out of Philadelphia. And so, as I just mentioned, James Harden, 3rd trade in 4 years. Now he's trying to move off from the Philadelphia 76ers, a team that he wanted to go to initially, and move into a different direction. And a lot of rumors are coming out saying that he's eyeing the Los Angeles Clippers. But with that being said, is it finally time to admit that James Harden is the walking problem?
No, because how I don't get it. Like the guy is coming into the Sixers, he's like, hey, I want a long-term deal. Daryl Morey is like, no, I cannot give you a long-term deal. Reports have come out from, I believe, Shams and other sources that are saying basically that the relationship is fractured at this point. Daryl Morey and James Harden. And I don't think the issue is Like they're really. The issue is James Harden. He initially didn't want to leave, but if he's not going to get paid, he's not going to get a long-term deal. He might as well go out and get out of there. I think he's going to play on his 1 year. He goes to the Clippers and then attempt to get a long-term deal after that. But it's not like okay, James Harden came to offseason. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and request a trade. No, it's more like okay, I'm not getting paid. I'm going to get out of here. I'm gonna play for a year, and then go to whatever team that's gonna end up paying me the money that I'm requesting. James Harden took a pay cut last summer. He's not gonna obviously take a pay cut this summer. He's looking for a long-term deal. So I don't think it's like James Harden's problem in Philadelphia. No, the guy just paid. Pretty simple.
James Harden's done. I'm sorry. Regardless of what team he goes to, I don't see him winning anything. I don't see him winning in the finals.
Well, that has no relevance. He's trying to get paid.
Oh, you talking about him trying to get paid?
The whole point of him.
You hit mute.
The whole point of him requesting a trade out of Philadelphia is him trying to get paid because he's not the Philadelphia is going to give him a long-term deal.
This is his last big contract though.
Exactly.
It is his last big thing because if he does play out that 1 year in Philadelphia, whatever that 37 mil is, I don't see him getting a 4-year deal, 3-year deal after that. Yeah, for him, if it's the money angle, then hey, I respect it. If he wants to get paid, he gets paid. But at the same time, I don't know, man. Philadelphia talking about they want to keep him. He's over here with Daryl Morey and what's the other guy's name? That off-white party, whatever that was called.
Michael
Rubin, PJ Tucker's there, Embiid's there. They all look like they're enjoying their time. Tobias Harris is there. They're talking about they're bringing back the gang. So I don't know. See, if they do pay him and he stays in Philadelphia, I feel like still, they're not the favorites out in the East. But if it comes to the Clippers, if they do give him a contract, hey, you, Westbrook, Kawhi, PG, still not the Kings of LA. Still not the Kings of LA. So to me, regardless of where he goes to or whatnot,
it's not even about the money for me, man. I think people are now starting to understand, this guy's is his deck and what his hand that he's trying to play. This guy, his third trade in 4 years. Obviously he moved off from Houston. He requested 2 teams, I think 3 teams. He ended up going to one of those teams that he wanted to go to, which was the Brooklyn Nets. They threw a huge offer at the Rockets. A couple of years in Brooklyn, a year and a half, I would say. Didn't end up panning out to how he wanted it to pan out to be. And then he ended up moving off to a team that he wanted to go to, a destination that he wanted to go to, in the Philadelphia 76ers. I understand he took a pay cut last year, and this might be all about money. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, what is James Harden's value today? What is James Harden going to provide for my franchise that'll help me win an NBA championship? If James Harden was worth the money that he's looking for, some team would have offered for him by now. There's 100% no doubt in my mind. There was smoke coming out of this regular season saying that the Houston Rockets were interested. Once Ime Udoka got signed as their head coach, everything quieted down. There was nothing coming out of the Houston Rockets organization that indicated that they wanted to sign this guy, James Harden, and bring him back there. There's nothing that came out of that. And once the Philadelphia Sixers realized that James Harden isn't really worth much on the market today, it's Daryl Morey is just playing his hand, and he's understanding that James Harden is not worth the money he's asking, and we're not going to be that dumb franchise that pays him what he's looking for. So what he wants. So I understand why James Harden right now he's requesting a trade, but at the same time, it's kind of like he's more of a problem than some guy that's in comparison to somebody you could rely on for it to help your franchise win an NBA championship at this point. And so whether he ends up getting paid or ends up getting moved to the Los Angeles Clippers, I'm not too sure if James Harden, regardless, is going to end up with the huge pay that he's looking for. It might be something, less to what, obviously a little bit more, might be a little bit less than what he's right now.
The issue is the length of the deal. The issue is the length of the deal.
There's some bums right now that are getting paid some good money. There's some bums right now.
The issue is the length. It's not about the money in of itself in total. It's about the length of the deal. He wants a long-term deal. This guy realizes, okay, I'm 34 right now, 33, whatever. 4 years from now, I'm about to be 37, 38. Okay, this is going to be my last serious contract. He's looking for a long-term deal. It isn't about if James Harden was looking for a 2-year deal, teams would offer him that, no question. But the Philadelphia 76ers would give him that. But he's looking for a 4-year deal. And that's exactly what the Philadelphia 76ers don't want to give him. So he's just like, okay, I'm just gonna ask out. That's my idea of if I'm not gonna get paid here, I'm gonna go to the Clippers. I'm gonna play on my last year of this. I'm gonna opt in and play my last year, and then I'm gonna look for a pay rise after that. That's what a long-term deal. That's essentially what James Harden is trying to do with the Philadelphia 76ers.
And what I'm trying to tell you and trying to get the message across is he's not going to end up getting that regardless of how his upcoming season goes. And so it doesn't make any sense if James Harden isn't worth that. If James Harden isn't worth that right now, I can't. There's nothing that's going to indicate or that tells me in a year from now he's going to be worth what he's looking for. 4-year contract with X amount of money. That's just not. It's not like understandable. It's not something I can wrap around my head. Like James Harden is not going to get the huge payday he's looking for. Whether it's not a money issue, whether it's the duration of time with the franchise, it's just not going to happen for James Harden at this stage of his career. I've been saying this for quite some time now. We're seeing this guy decline right in front of our eyes, and the player that he is today isn't the same player he was 5-7 years ago. So it's kind of like
Chris Paul got the same contract. Chris Paul got a huge contract 2021 with his Phoenix Suns. Why can't James Harden get paid?
44,
Chris Paul was one of the pieces that kind of helped the Phoenix Suns turn their franchise around completely. When they got Chris Paul, they just came off the NBA bubble where they went 8-0.
What's a huge difference between that Chris Paul and James Harden now? What's a huge difference between those two?
Chris Paul helped him get to the NBA Finals
what's the difference between those two as a player? They're both playmakers. They can both score not the same level that they used to. They're both 20 and 10 players at that point. Chris Paul, if anything, he's a worse scorer than James Harden is now. So I just don't get it. Like James, he's looking for a contract. Chris Paul got paid the same, basically $44 million for 18 and 10. James Harden, who averaged 22 and 11, somehow isn't going to get paid.
It's just,
I don't get it.
A lot of franchises are probably going to use Chris Paul as an example as to why they shouldn't pay a guy like James Harden. But if anything, Chris Paul was more help to the Phoenix Suns than James Harden was to any of these franchises that he's been on since he's left Houston, I would say. So Brooklyn, obviously he got injured, so that doesn't count. But Philly, there's no excuse for Philly. Philly, he was just legit dog shit. Like,
I mean,
he might have had a couple games.
The best player on the team didn't even show up.
James Harden himself, outside of those 2 games where he dropped,
he
40,
gave him 2 games, and this is a wash James Harden. This is a wash James Harden. This is when comparison.
What about
to
when they needed him most? What about when they needed him most?
His MVP didn't show up. The best center, the supposed best center in the league didn't show up.
And Joel Embiid.
It's a pecking order. It's a Joel Embiid and it's a James Harden. James Harden, yes. Did he not show up for those 4 games? Yeah, sure, of course not. And I think that's a part of the reason why he devalued him as a player now as it is. I really believe if it was James Harden if we were to value James Harden coming out of the regular season of last season, people would be more willing to give him this long-term contract. But he's thinking, okay, let me go to Clippers. Let me rise my value. Whether that is through a playoff performance, through winning a ring, whatever it may be. That's his idea of raising his value. Let me perform over there in LA, and let me look for this long-term deal that I'm trying to get, whether that's 3 years or 4 years. It didn't happen in Philadelphia, and that's why they're reluctant to pay him. But at the end of the day, there's context of why Philadelphia didn't perform. It's not just James Harden. The fucking MVP didn't even perform himself. The center, the Joel Embiid, the most skilled center since Hakeem didn't show up. So it's not just a James Harden problem. If it was a 2-year deal, people would give it. It's a 4-year deal that people are having issue with, and I have no problem with James Harden requesting a trade. I don't think it's a walking problem. That makes no sense. How's a walking problem for trying to get paid?
I just don't see this guy helping any franchise to win a championship. You could put this guy in the best situation possible, and he would still find a way to fuck that up. That's just who James Harden is as a player.
Yeah, that's a
this
stretch.
Is the place
that's
that this is somewhere he wanted to go. And if this guy was playing what he's asking for with the Philadelphia 76ers, I'm sure Daryl Morey would not hesitate at all to give him what he's looking for. Him and Daryl Morey have a great relationship, and now their relationship is.
But you just seen a bum like Fred VanVleet get paid $40 million. You're telling me James Harden's not worth that?
Fred VanVleet offers more in today's game than James Harden.
Yo.
Why are we?
You just heard this? You just heard this?
Time out. Did you say FVV is more valuable than James Harden right now?
Right now, as of right now, I would much rather have Fred VanVleet and his problems. Although
did you
he
even
can't apply
watch
any
Fred
rim
VanVleet this
pressure.
season? Did you even watch Fred VanVleet this season?
Fred VanVleet has his own problems, but it's not as bad. It's not as bad as James
No,
Harden.
it's no. I promise you.
You're tripping
There
right
is
now.
not outside of 3-point shooting. Outside of 3-point shooting, and even in this season, James Harden was better at that. Outside of 3-point shooting, there's not a single thing on offense Fred VanVleet does better. Not a single thing.
And I'm taking James Harden on the defensive side of the ball as well. Well, FEV
Fred VanVleet is a cone now. He's actually a cone now.
I mean, I think you could surround yourself a nice roster.
He's even more inefficient.
James Harden, you put this guy in any situation, you can put him in the best situation possible. He's gonna find a way to mess that up. I can't trust a guy like that.
How is Fred VanVleet more valuable than James Harden in 2023? That's a crazy statement. What the hell? It's 20. What? Not even any planet is Fred VanVleet's not even a top 50 player on this planet. Not even a top 60 player, and somehow he's better than a guy that's at least at worst top 40.
Where's
James Harden's a top 40 player. The guy averaged 20. The guy averaged 20.
FPV to me, bro, he's a horrible player.
The guy averaged 19 on 39%. 39%.
We're sitting here and acting like James Harden is some sort of good basketball player.
Yes,
this guy is not anything at this point.
He's at worst. James Harden is a 23-11 player. What the hell is Fred VanVleet? 19 points on 39% of the field.
And doesn't bring anything to the franchise.
Yes, he does.
When the postseason
he's a floor. At worst, James Harden, when you bring him to your roster, he's guaranteeing wins for your regular season team. Is Fred VanVleet doing the same? Is Fred VanVleet guaranteeing you wins even in the regular season?
I think he could do it to a certain degree. It's not not as much as James Harden is doing it, but
the nigga couldn't even do it for the Raptors this season. What? He couldn't even do it for the Raptors this season.
The Raptors had their own problems, man. It's not that. It's just
he was dog shit. He's the problem. He was the problem. The guy was dog shit this season for the Raptors.
They're gonna be worse. They're gonna be worse now that he's gone.
The guy literally a 19 points per game, bro. Like, I don't think you understand. Putting Fred VanVleet and James Harden in the same sentence is crazy. It's crazy. And this is 2023 James Harden. He's no longer the scorer that he is. That's a ridiculous statement. I got to average 23 and 11. What the hell? What is Fred VanVleet's stats? 19 points on 39%?
Yeah. 19 and 7. 19 and 7.
On so what? On what shooting? On what shooting? Please, on God, tell me on what shooting. I dare you to bring up the field goal percentage.
He shot 39% from the field and 30%.
And what from three? 34%. The guy was dog shit this year.
That far off. And in my personal opinion, I would much rather.
No. If he beat down the Rodilo. If he beat down the Rodilo. He down the Rodilo.
I swear to God.
Dilo's in the trenches of his own, man.
I swear to God, the Lakers got a better point guard on their bench now. I swear to you. Gabe Vincent's better than that guy, bro. I swear to you, bro. They got him on a steal, bro, compared to Fred VanVleet.
Bro, tripping. Yeah, you're tripping. You think?
No. In my humble opinion, I would much rather take Fred VanVleet. I might not.
As your third and fourth option, yes, but
I don't even.
James Harden. I wouldn't even take James Harden as my
I don't even think I would take him as my third, fourth option, bro.
James Harden, if he goes to the
Clippers, are you taking
Fred VanVleet?
Right? Yeah. I'll definitely take that. What the hell? If anything, that makes
on the Clippers, he's a third option, right?
But the thing is, on the Clippers, if anything,
messing that whole thing up.
If anything, on the Clippers, he makes their job way easier. Because now they actually have
he's gonna play make for guys like Kawhi and Paul George.
Exactly.
Come on, bro.
Put him in, nigga. They had Paul George running. They had Paul George.
It's not a playmaker for Kawhi and PG. It's playmaker for the other players around him.
Even then. For other guys,
that's what
even
people
for
were
those
saying
guys.
when he
No,
came to
but
Philly though. Isn't that what the people were saying?
And what was he doing? What was he doing?
Where did Philly go?
If you bring up the MVP stats, Embiid and him averaging 21 points in the playoffs, and
we're speaking about James Harden. When James Harden got traded to Philly, right? You guys told me they weren't expecting the version from Houston. They were expecting the Brooklyn version where he was facilitating.
Yes. What was he doing? Why did they finish? Why did they finish as a third seed? They had the MVP and what else? Since you love putting them in the same sentence, and somehow they're in the same category, the MVP and James Harden. What did James Harden? What did James Harden do this season? What did he do in the regular season?
That's what I'm trying. I'm gonna get to that. I understand that he did help them facilitate and run their offense, but
he was a damn near all NBA level player before he got hurt. He was an all NBA level player.
Where did
He's
it
an all
get them?
NBA
Where
level
did,
player.
where did it get them? Where did it get them in the
Yeah,
postseason?
MVP.
Injuries,
Yes, he was.
injuries aside,
He
where
was
did it get
yes,
them? It didn't get
yes.
them
James
anywhere.
Harden in those 4 games that he didn't show up, he was dog shit. What about the MVP? If the MVP shows up, we're not having this discussion. We're not
The
having this
MVP,
talk.
if anything, the MVP was the one that was playing injured. I'm not even here to
Okay,
give Joel
man.
Embiid a
Yep,
pass.
his
I'm not.
19th postseason being injury. Okay, man. It's been 9 years every year.
I'm not even gonna sit here and give him a pass.
Listen,
But
if James Harden goes to the Clippers, look, his job is pretty simple. He's gonna play make for everybody on that roster. Last year they had PG running point guard, and PG as a point guard was a disaster. This guy was turnover prone. He wasn't focused on scoring. He was focused on facilitating. James Harden, in any situation that you put him in, James Harden has this knack for making every player next to him good. Tyrese Maxey, he made his job 1,000 times easier. Any situation that James Harden's been, the players around him have gotten better. There's no question about that. So anywhere that you go, you're automatically getting a player that's going to be a floor raiser in the regular season. He's going to play make for other players, and they're going to get better. That's no question about that. That's exactly what the fuck Chris Paul does. That's what Chris Paul was doing for the Phoenix Suns. It's the same thing.
What is that going to do for any franchise in the postseason? What is that going to help? What is that going to do? In the regular season, it's nice. It's nice to elevate everybody's game on a Tuesday night in Memphis.
Yes, it matters.
What happens in the postseason?
Wait, why is that not important? Why is that not important?
It's important, but it's not as important as what you can provide for me and bring for me.
Is James Harden worth 40 million? Is James Harden worth 40 million? Yes.
No, hell no. What is
he worth?
Hell no. If right now on the market.
No, what is he worth? Like, what should James Harden be getting paid every year?
James Harden at this stage of his career, we know with the way the market is, I can say about 20-25 for a player.
So James Harden should
for a player like him.
So James Harden should be getting paid less than Cam Johnson.
100%. 100%. This was the final. This was the final star for James Harden.
So James Harden,
I gave him this entire season to kind of overcome all of his issues.
James Harden should get paid less than Tyler Hero.
100%. There's
he
those guys.
At least wow.
Those guys. If I put the right pieces around them, those guys can help me win ball games.
Big H, I hope you're hearing this. By the way, I hope you're listening to this. I hope you're listening to this.
Not helping.
20 to 25. James Harden. So he's saying right now, he's saying James Harden should get paid.
There's some
James Harden getting paid less than Kyle Kuzma. He's saying James Harden should get paid less than Kyle Kuzma.
And that's me being nice at this stage of James Harden's career.
What the like? How can you take that serious? How's that serious? How is that a
There's
serious
nothing
statement?
that this guy provides for me in the postseason. That's when the lights are the brightest. When my team needs to win an NBA championship.
So James Harden be getting paid less than Jordan Poole.
Yes.
All right,
100%.
You got it. You got it.
There's nothing that this guy provides for me in the postseason.
You got it.
There's nothing
if you replace Harden with Poole on the Sixers,
you know what's crazy? No, Big H, hold up. You replace James Harden. You place James Harden with any of these players that you're so happy about. I promise to God they look way worse. Yeah. Any of these players, you put them in. First off, they're not getting any close. They're not getting any close to the wins that they got in the regular season. In the postseason, if they're
that stretch Embiid missed for the Sixers, I promise you, if you replace Hero, you put Hero on that team, you put Poole on that team, you put MVP,
you put Cam Johnson, you put Kuzma, but any of these players that he's talking about should get paid.
What about where
you put Anthony Simons? Any of these
change anything from what my stance is.
It does.
This is the NBA playoffs. When lights are the brightest, where is James Harden, buddy?
That's such a weird way to look at basketball. It's not just
not a weird way. It's not a weird way.
You look at basketball in totality.
We've had this agenda for James Harden. I've had this for James Harden for a while now, and a lot of you've told me yourself that we have to give him some time, and he's going to be just fine.
You're supposed to look at basketball in totality, though. You're supposed to look at basketball in totality. You don't just cut off the fucking regular season. The regular season matters. It's about It's about the wins that you can provide in the regular season, the ability to make your teammates better, and what you can provide as a second option. James Harden averaged what in this postseason? 18 and 9 on dog shit shooting, whatever. He gave him 40+ games in the second round. If the MVP shows up in the second round, we are not having this discussion. If the Philadelphia 76ers are in the conference,
the MVP got an excuse in his bag. He's playing on an injury. He's got an excuse in his bag.
Yes, he got his excuse. He got his excuse for the
him.
8th year. For the 8th year in a row, he got in his excuse.
But it's the truth, right? I mean, he was playing on a bum knee.
Hey man, I love how the Discord is. Middle of the year, beginning of the year, end of the year. Yeah, he was giving no excuse to Embiid. Everybody was supporting him.
That's
Now it's flipped. Now it's flipped.
That's
Yeah,
the
now it's
honest.
flipped.
That's what it is now, right? As of right now, I'm not going to sit here and say, obviously the whole reason the Sixers lost is on James Harden. That's not true, but that's not the discussion for today. We're talking about James Harden specifically. There's nothing that this guy provides for me in the regular season, and like you mentioned, obviously you said regular season wins matter, elevating other guys' play matter. I understand that. What about elevating your game in the postseason as well? That's the whole point of why they got this guy.
So why do you think Jordan?
Why
Do you think Jordan Poole should have gotten paid more than a guy like James Harden when Jordan Poole's fucking dog shit after round 1 in the playoffs?
How
does that make any sense?
Jordan Poole on the Warriors last year was going through a completely different situation.
No,
that
not
guy
even
was
just
pretty
this.
much so-
What about the first year, the 2021, the 2022 season?
He was pretty solid for them. Obviously,
after the Nuggets series.
It wasn't at the level as what he was doing in comparison.
He was unplayable in that Boston
Nuggets
series.
But the reason Jordan Poole got paid that year was what he did in the season. Yes or no?
Yes, thank you. No,
When Curry
listen,
was out,
it wouldn't have. I promised the guy, Big H. If Jordan Poole didn't play a second of that 2022 postseason, I promised that he would have been paid exactly the same he got paid. Nothing would have changed. Tyrese Maxey, the same thing. Tyler Hero, the same thing.
Curry was out, and we seen how Poole stepped up during that season. We seen how he stepped up during that season.
Bro, Tyler Hero got paid.
His numbers. The thing is, his numbers didn't change anyways.
Tyler Hero got paid, and he was dog shit in the playoffs. Tyler Hero got paid. Tyler Hero got paid, and he was dog shit in the fucking playoffs. He was ass, and he still got paid. What does that say? These teams aren't looking at basketball as like, okay, postseason or no postseason. You perform in postseason, you get paid. You don't perform, you don't get paid. They don't look at basketball like that.
I mean,
they look at it in totality.
It's two different. It's also two different kind of situations and scenarios. These guys that we're talking about, Jordan Poole and Tyler Hero, less than 25, 26 years old at the.
They're not better players, though. That's the point.
Tyler Hero's not better players. Younger. When you pay these young guys X amount of money, the money that they're getting in the offseason, you're not only banking on you're not only paying them based on what they provided for you, you're paying them based on their potential. So this is two completely different situations.
It's not because it's what they provide. It is because
they're not paying Tyler Hero for the player that he is now. They're paying him based on the player he could be 2-3 years down the line.
But the thing is, I'm saying is these teams don't view basketball in such a black and white fashion. It's postseason or no postseason. They look at what does this guy provide to my team in totality. If I bring this guy, is he going to be guaranteeing me wins? The whole point. What was the whole point of the Rockets signing Fred VanVleet? What was the reason? They want to guarantee wins. That's the whole point of them signing Fred VanVleet. That's the exact point of signing guys like this.
Some veteran leadership behind that as well.
The majority of the reason is that they want to guarantee wins. They're not trying to be in a losing situation anymore. They want to get some wins more. That's the whole idea of signing a guy like Fred VanVleet. It's the same thing that applies to James Harden to another degree because he's a 23-11 type of player. It doesn't even matter if he was next to Joel Embiid or not. If he's next to any other player, he's still going to average a high volume of assists. He's a playmaker. James Harden leads efficient offenses. This is what the Philadelphia 76ers had one of the best offenses in the NBA because of a guy like James Harden. So the point is, what is a guy like James Harden provide to a team?
Why don't they want to give him the contract he's looking for?
Because Daryl Morey doesn't believe in James Harden after two years. He doesn't think that age-wise that he's going to be 37, 38, he's going to produce at that level anymore. If James Harden was 32, even if he was looking like this in the playoffs, he would still get paid the same. He would still get paid what he's requesting. But in his eyes, he's thinking, okay, well, Daryl Morey's eyes, he's like, I don't want a repeat of that 2019 Chris Paul contract where guys were saying he's the worst contract in the NBA. But in James Harden's eyes, he believes, okay, I can still be a productive basketball player for these next 2 or 3 years. That's what in his perspective. Daryl Morey's like, okay, this guy, when he's 37, is he going to be the same level of player that I had when he's 34? And so that's where the disagreement is coming from. And they both are valid in what they're saying.
Daryl Morey is just one guy. He's the general manager of the team that James Harden is currently on. What about the market for the rest of the league? If people value James Harden like the way you're valuing him right now, wouldn't he be the hottest guy on the market right now? The way you're talking about him, he would have been gone by now. He would have been traded for sure.
James Harden looking to be in a winning situation. He's also looking to be in a winning situation.
Why aren't these winning teams calling? If this guy is still good, right? In your eyes, if he can provide if he can help my team in the regular season, if he can help my young guys or my pieces around these superstars elevate their game,
what so-called winning team can match his salary and have the assets to trade for him? The Clippers can.
The Clippers are the one team. I'm pretty sure there's a couple other teams that can do it.
There really isn't. There really isn't. Every other team has their situation sorted. The Lakers aren't going to obviously. They already have AD and LeBron. The Kings don't. They already have De'Aaron Fox. They don't need him. The Grizzlies, they already have John Morant. We don't even need to talk about the Mavericks. OKC. Like, what are we talking about here? The Bucks, are they going to? They have
If
Drew Mil-
if
Drew
James
Holiday
Harden
and
was the
Chris.
player you're describing to me right now, the market would be hot for him. There's nothing. There's not.
That doesn't make
If,
any
if
sense. Like James
teams
Harden,
would be calling for him, if this guy's supposed to be
What-
as good as you're saying,
what-
why are teams calling?
So why
for him?
can't
They
you?
would be
Why
calling
can't
for
you
him.
provide me a situation that James Harden should go to right now?
If any winning situation, if any winning team, right
Like,
now
give
that's
me
a
one. Give me
contender,
one. Give me
I'm
one.
not. You just listed off like 7 teams, but my whole
And I
point
told
is
you
pretty
why.
much-
I told you why they would not go for James Harden. They already have their situation sorted out. The Miami Heat would be the only theoretical team, but they're already after Dame. They're stuck on. We're hell bent on Dame. It's Dame or bust. That's how the Miami Heat are. They're whale hunters. It's literally Dame or bust for this team. And even then, they had interest in James Harden. It's just the lack of assets for someone like him and matching his salary. So at the end of the day, they're in. James Harden's looking for a winning situation, and the Sixers, they're looking for a team that can match his salary, and then they have the assets to trade for him. So the Clippers logically make sense. It's either that or remain in Philadelphia. Every other team has a situation. Is he gonna go to the Bucks? Of course not. They have Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton. The Boston Celtics? Hell fucking no. They have Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum. What other team is there? All
I
these
mean,
other teams have their situation
Boston
sorted out.
would be a nice addition for him but they don't have the assets. But anyways, my whole entire point is if James Harden was this player that you're making him out to be, the market would be extremely hot for him. Whether or not teams don't necessarily need him because of the certain pieces that they already got, James Harden would. If James Harden said that he wants out, a lot of teams would be calling the Philadelphia 76ers line. But that just isn't the case right now.
Plus, the reports came out that he's eyeing the Clippers, so there is that.
But it's the thing is, James Harden has absolutely zero leverage in the situation. There's absolutely nothing. Like if James Harden comes back to Philly and plays this last year of his contract out, and they end up going their separate ways, Daryl Morey's chilling. It's not like, damn, I gotta trade this guy and get some sort of assets back, so I don't end up looking like a loser if he walks in June and July. Like, that's not the case here. If he stays in Philly and he doesn't re-sign and they end up going their separate ways, Daryl Morey is chilling. So that's exactly what I'm.
I mean,
are
they really chill? Are they really chilling? I mean, this year it's definitely cooked for them, regardless if James Harden was here or not. It's like they're absolutely cooked if James Harden. First off, they're absolutely cooked if James Harden isn't here. But even if he is, they're still stuck. They're still on that Tobias Harris contract. They have Tyrese Maxey's there and Joel Embiid. What's the rest of the team? They don't have assets.
But that's okay. Let me get to the
so
point.
It's not like Daryl Morey's gonna be like, okay, I don't have James Harden. Let's go. I'm fucking winning. They're not winning shit.
I'm not saying he's gonna be like, overly excited, but I'm not saying he's not. What I'm trying to say is he's not gonna lose any sleep if James Harden ends up walking for free in the next offseason. But the Philadelphia 76ers overall, they have problems of their own, regardless whether James Harden is in a Sixers uniform, whether he's not. It doesn't matter. Those guys have the problem of their own. They have their whole roster construction is completely terrible. And I think regardless, coming out of next season, Daryl Morey is going to have to make a decision whether or not, even if he wants to keep a guy like Joel Embiid on his current roster, because nobody wants to take Tobias Harris's contract. Tyrese Maxey can get you some sort of assets back in the market, and Joel Embiid is your hottest piece on the team. He can get you more than anything aside from Maxey. So those guys have to make a decision. But what I'm trying to say is James Harden is not going to be, moving the needle for them regardless whether he stays or goes. And if he does go next offseason, Daryl Morey is going to be cool with it. My whole thing is I just don't understand. This is 3 trades requests in 4 years, and each and every situation has been a failure after failure after failure. And wherever he goes next, whether it's him staying in Philly, whether it's him going to the Clippers, there's nothing that's going to change for any of those franchises. They're not going to be able to get over the hump with this guy on the roster. And what I'm trying to say is, to end off this entire segment, is any team would be better off without James Harden on their roster. Because at the end of the day,
that's just dumb as shit. That makes no sense. That makes no sense. You're picking up a 23 and 11 player. How do you not get better with a 23 and 11 player? That logically makes no fucking sense. If the Clippers walk away with James Harden and they give up Robert Covington, fucking Norman Powell, they're gonna look around and say, we fucking won that trade. How does that make any sense? They got a 23 and 11 player.
They're gonna watch in the moment. They're gonna be like, we just really fleeced the 76ers. We got James Harden, the 23 and 11 guys you're saying right now, or for just guys like Robert Covington and Norman Powell, completely fine. Once the next season follows through and we end up having a discussion again in the months of April and May, the discussion is going to be completely different. The Clipper fans are going to be like, damn, although we might have finessed the 76ers, there was no reason for us to get this guy. We were better off just running it back with the same core that we had. I understand that we have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, but at the same time, we need James Harden to pick up his slack of his own. We need him to contribute, not at a high level, but at a solid level, so he could be some sort of third option to these guys. And that's what they're going to be saying at the end of next season for them, which is in April and May.
I promise you they're not. I promise you they will.
Because there's no way that all of a sudden James Harden goes to the Los Angeles Clippers and he has a solid regular season. He has a solid, he gets all the guys involved in the regular season. And somehow, some way in the postseason, he finally lifts himself up, doesn't shoot the ball bad, scores about 16 to 18 points, gets about 9-10 assists, and it's all glitters and gravy for this.
That's exactly what that's exactly what they're looking for.
That's what their vision is. Yes, but James Harden, knowing him in the postseason, we understand how bad of a player he is.
You're not understanding. Yes or no is at this point. I want to know what you're thinking. If the Sixers get Norman Powell and Robert Covington, do they get better? Or they get worse? And Terrence Mann, let's just say,
they don't get better at all. They don't get better.
Who gets better in this trade? The Clippers, correct?
What on paper? Yes, it's supposed to be.
No, do they get better? Do they get better? Do the Clippers get better by getting James Harden? Obviously, but if it was fucking Fred VanVleet instead of James Harden, you would say they got better.
I'm not confident in James Harden making this team a lot better than what they already are right now.
They're gonna be obviously better. They get a playmaker.
I completely understand that, and I understand, and like we can legit have this argument for the next like hour and a half. I understand how good of a playmaker this guy is. This is who he is in this stage of his career. He's not the scorer he is. He's an amazing playmaker. I understand that. But none of that matters to me when in the postseason, this guy he's going to be shooting the ball. He's not going to be shooting the ball well, and his facilitating is not going to be at a high level. There's no point for me if this guy's shooting the ball terrible and having about 7, 8 assists, 9 assists. Like that's cool, but like at the end of the day, it's like you have to provide some sort of scoring for me.
That's why PG and Kawhi are there.
Alongside my scoring punch.
That's why PG and Kawhi are there.
And you know what makes
they're pairing up at the same time as the playoff P. Right? We haven't seen Paul George.
But no, hold on. Let me get to my point. You know what makes it worse is the fact that he's trying to go to a team where their two superstars you cannot rely on them to be healthy come postseason time. So what happens if, hypothetically speaking, it's James Harden and it's Kawhi, or it's James Harden and Paul George? What does that team look like in the postseason? Not only
he's already in a situation. He's already in a situation where his center literally cannot quote unquote stay healthy. So what's the difference? I mean, Joel Embiid every postseason, is he going to be healthy?
But listen though, the 76ers they were pretty much relying on James Harden to elevate his game alongside Joel Embiid, but also be the playmaker that you're saying that he was supposed to be. And I completely understand exactly what it was. But now that he goes to the Clippers, it's going to be the same situation if either one of those guys get hurt. So it is now. Not only are you expecting James Harden to continue being the facilitator that he is, you're expecting more of a scoring load from him, pretty similar to what they were expecting out of him from the 76ers. So what does that look like? We already know what it looks like. So that's my whole entire point. It literally makes absolutely no sense for me to sit here and say, well, I understand the Clippers are going to, on paper, it looks like they fleeced the 76ers. But in the long run, he's going to a team that those two superstars can't be relied on in the postseason. And if one of those two guys go down, James Harden's going to be asked to do more. Can I count on James Harden to do more for my franchise in the postseason? Absolutely not. You're not going to sit here and tell me that.
But you don't frame stuff in the postseason. I keep telling you this. You don't frame stuff in the postseason. You look at it in totality. My nigga, you don't sign players just because, he was good in postseason. He wasn't good in postseason. You look at what they bring, their value that they bring to the team in general. James Harden on your team, you're going to build a good to elite offense. When James Harden is on your team, you're going to get an offense that's a high level offense. You're going to guarantee yourself way more wins in the regular season. That's the whole point of signing someone like James Harden. He's going to elevate your roster. That's the idea of it. Like, I can't, like, what the fuck? How can you justify Fred VanVleet, but you can't justify James Harden? That's literally the stupidest logic I think I've heard all day.
FPV is crazy.
I would personally have Fred VanVleet on my roster over James Harden. Even with all his deficiencies as a player.
What does he do better than Harden?
I think I'll be just fine, man.
No, but what does he do better than Harden?
They could be basically pretty much the same player. And I might be backtracking now. But at the end of the day, in my humble opinion, I would much rather just have a guy like Fred VanVleet, because at the end of the day, it's like I'm not too sure what I'm going to be expecting out of a guy like him, but it's just not going to be as bad as James Harden.
Well, you're definitely not going to be guaranteeing wins in the regular season. That's for sure.
It is what it is. It really just depends on the roster construction. You put Fred VanVleet in a different situation, it might be a little bit different. But for James Harden, it is like I've been saying since the start of this entire segment. It doesn't matter what situation you put this guy in. It doesn't. There's nothing that's gonna make me sit here and say that this guy's gonna elevate this team, to championship status. And like I've always said, I'm not a big regular season guy, and I know franchises don't look at it that way. Obviously they take in the regular season and they take in what they can bring to on that side, and also the postseason. But aside from us not being general managers, as a viewer of the game, we have to understand that obviously for some teams and for some players, the regular season no longer matters anymore. What you can bring to a franchise in the regular season is just not as important as what you can bring to a franchise in the postseason. And there's a lot of players like that. It's not only just James Harden. We've seen it. We're seeing it with Damian Lillard now. Obviously, Dame being in a shit situation, he's trying to get out of that. And because at the end of the day, it's not like we don't care what he can do in the regular season anymore. It's a matter of him going to a team where he can compete and provide and help a team win an NBA championship, which is why your Miami Heat are pursuing him. Even though Dame doesn't necessarily have a great track record in the postseason, but it's not as bad as James Harden. Obviously Dame had his bad series and he also had his great series. But that's why you guys are going after him. If you guys get James Harden, I would assume you guys get extremely worse going into next season.
Wait, what?
If the Miami Heat get James Harden, I would confidently sit here and say the Celtics are better.
I promise to God, we get exponentially better. I promise to God, we get exponentially better. What the hell? If we get James Harden, we get exponentially better. What? My nigga, we had Gabe Vincent and Kyle Lowry. What are you talking about? Gabe Vincent after round 2.
I would have ran it back with Gabe Vincent. 1 or 2. I would have ran it back.
I would no. Hell no, I would not. Hell
over
no.
Harden?
You would have. So you're telling you would much rather have you would throw in
James Harden over Gabe Vincent. Yes. If you want to take time, go look at Gabe Vincent.
Are we stooping that low right now?
I would.
This is James Harden. This is James Harden. We're already low as it is. We're only getting a little bit lower now.
Then what is Gabe Vincent and Fred VanVleet? Then if we're going low, what? What is that?
They gotta be some dirt.
It's aside from Fred.
Like if James Harden is worth 20 million, bro, Fred VanVleet's worth 5 million, 3 million at best.
I'm not gonna sit here and justify Fred VanVleet's contract. Obviously 42 million for Fred VanVleet. Like I said, I don't necessarily agree with that. But obviously, I'm gonna repeatedly say again, I would much rather have him over James Harden, and I think the Miami Heat would much rather stuck with a guy like Gabe Vincent over James Harden himself.
Definitely not.
There's just no way. I understand them going after Dame because Dame he elevates their game, elevates the team as a whole, and takes them over the hump, and obviously win an NBA championship. I just don't see that with James Harden. But
Fred VanVleet, bro, it's crazy.
To each their own. I think we're gonna go ahead and close out this episode here. Any final words before we sign off?
Yeah, let's get to the NFL next, man.
The James Harden argument.
Now, we already seen the light. Fred VanVleet worth more than James Harden. But I don't think any serious person has ever uttered that in their life. I don't think they've ever even mentioned them in the same sentence. I don't think anybody's even watched basketball has even put them in the same sentence. That's a crazy statement.
This is James Harden in 2023. This is James
Harden.
What
the hell's Fred VanVleet in 2023?
If anything, they're the same player.
I'll pay you money. I'll pay you money.
I'll leave it at that.
I'll pay you money if you show me Fred VanVleet shooting 41% a season. I'll pay you money, bro. Good money for a season.
It is what it is. I think I'm gonna leave this conversation where it is right now. I think we've said our piece about James Harden. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and close out this episode here. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. We really appreciate your love and support. We'd really appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Media Podcast. And for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, all of our social media handles will be at the end of this video. And if you're listening to us on Apple and Spotify, if you go to our Instagram page at New Media Podcast, you'll be able to navigate yourself to all of our social media handles there. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Me and now Lakes, now that's overkill.